Why you wouldn't want to be royal in the 1500s. Good evening, restless soul. Welcome to another night of historical horrors to help you sleep. I'm your host, and tonight we're traveling back to the glorious, glamorous, gut-wrenching 1500s. Dim your lights now. Get comfortable. Savor these modern luxuries while you can. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy historical suffering, and subscribe for more bedtime nightmares from the past. Tonight's story is particularly special. You see, you're about to wake up as royalty in 16th century Europe. How exciting, how prestigious, how absolutely horrifying. Let me be your guide through what will certainly be the longest day of your soon-to-be shortened life. By the end, you'll be kissing your toilet and hugging your antibiotics. So close your eyes. Imagine the scratchy feel of lice-infested bedsheets. The room smells of tallow, human waste, and the lingering scent of whatever that thing was that died in the walls last month. Sweet dreams, Your Majesty. The nightmare begins now. Hour 1. Waking up, 6 a.m. You wake with a start, heart pounding, momentarily confused by the weight of the strange wooden bed canopy looming above you. Is it about to collapse? Possibly. Court carpenters were selected for their family connections, not their skill with a nail. Your bedchamber is freezing despite the roaring fire your servants maintained all night. That's what happens when you live in what's essentially a giant stone refrigerator. Your breath clouds before you, like the ghost you're increasingly likely to become before your 40th birthday. Speaking of servants, you're not alone. Never alone. Half a dozen people have been watching you sleep all night. Your most trusted gentleman of the bedchamber has been sitting on a hard wooden stool since midnight, staring at your royal face, making sure you're still breathing. Not out of concern for your well-being, mind you, but because your sudden death would create inconvenient political turmoil. Good morning, Your Highness, your chamber servants chorus with plastered smiles, hiding their mutual contempt. The groom of the stool approaches your bed with disturbing enthusiasm. His job title isn't a metaphor. He's literally in charge of your royal excrement, and it's considered one of the most prestigious positions at court. People have killed for this job. People have died for this job. People with actual talents and education have abandoned promising careers for the honor of inspecting your bowel movements. Don't laugh. In the 1500s, poop is political. The color, consistency, and frequency of your royal waste is documented with alarming precision and discussed by your Privy Council with the gravity of a military strategy. Your chamber pot contents will be examined each morning for signs of poison, disease, or omens about the kingdom's future. In the comments below, tell me if you'd rather be the royal food taster or the groom of the stool. Both jobs come with incredible prestige and a staggeringly short life expectancy. Hour 2. The royal toilet, 7 a.m. Time for your morning ablutions. Though ablutions is a rather generous term for what's about to happen. You'll use your chamber pot, essentially a fancy bucket, while your servants stand around pretending not to listen to the royal tinkle. Privacy hasn't been invented yet, at least not for you. The truly wealthy among your courtiers might own a close stool. That's a padded chair with a hole in it and a chamber pot underneath. It's the height of 16th century bathroom technology. If you're the monarch, yours might be covered in velvet with gold embroidery, because nothing says, "I'm important," like defecating onto precious fabrics. Ready to wash up? Here's a basin of cold water that was carried up from the well hours ago. It's been sitting here collecting dust and the occasional curious insect. Your soap, if you use it at all, is made from animal fat and lye. It won't lather properly, and it smells like rancid meat, but it's better than nothing. Oh, and don't even think about brushing your teeth. Instead, you'll rinse your mouth with vinegar or, if you're particularly sophisticated, a mixture of herbs and alcohol. Your teeth are already beginning to rot, but that's fine. blackened teeth are actually fashionable. They signal that you can afford sugar, that miraculous luxury that's destroying your mouth one sweetmeat at a time. Queen Elizabeth I had teeth so black that foreign ambassadors remarked on them with horror in their diplomatic correspondence. By the time she died, most of them had fallen out, leaving her with a sunken appearance that required wadding in her cheeks to maintain her royal visage. Something to look forward to. If you need more substantial relief, you might visit the castle's garderobe, essentially a hole in a stone seat that drops your business down the castle wall. In winter, these create lovely ice formations that decorate the castle exterior. In summer, they create, well, let's just say the castle moat isn't brown because of mud. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, or at least be grateful you can smash a button instead of swatting away the flies from the castle's waste disposal system. Hour 3. Getting dressed. 8 a.m. Now for the day's first great endurance test. Getting dressed. This isn't a quick t-shirt and jeans situation. This is a military operation involving multiple personnel and enough fabric to sail a small ship across the Atlantic. First, your linen shift. This is your only undergarment and you won't change it very often. Weekly if you're exceptionally clean. Monthly if you're normal for the era. The royal laundresses use lye so harsh it burns their hands, but don't worry, they'll keep washing your underthings until they drop dead from the chemicals or exhaustion, whichever comes first. For women, it's corset time, made of whalebone or reeds and designed to reshape your torso into a rigid cone. Your stays will compress your rib cage, displacing your internal organs and restricting your breathing to shallow, anxious gasps. The ideal waist measurement is approximately the circumference of a modern coffee mug. Your lady-in-waiting will cheerfully dislocate her own shoulder, pulling the laces tight enough to meet these standards. Men, you'll be strapped into padded doublets designed to give you the upper body of a bull and the waist of a wasp. Your codpiece, that's the padded pouch prominently displayed at your groin, should be large enough to store a small ferret, as was allegedly the custom of some particularly eccentric nobles. It's not compensating if it's a political statement. Next, come your ruffs and sleeves, often detachable so they can be washed separately from your rarely cleaned main garments. Your ruff, that ridiculously uncomfortable collar, is starched with a mixture that includes arsenic. Beauty is pain, and sometimes also poison. Now for your outer layers. Hope you've been working out, because your clothing weighs approximately 40 pounds. Women, your farthingale, the structured undergarment that makes your skirts stick out like a UFO, is wide enough that you'll need to turn sideways to fit through doorways. Men, your stuffed trunk hose make your thighs look like overstuffed sausages about to burst their casings. That's the height of masculine attractiveness. Finally, jewelry. Lots of it. Each piece is simultaneously decoration, portable wealth, and potential poison container. That ring with the hidden compartment isn't for show. It's for the emergency dose of antidote you carry at all times. Practical fashion. The ensemble is completed with shoes that don't distinguish between left and right feet, gloves perfumed to hide the smell of unwashed hands, and possibly a small pet monkey on a Golden's chain, because nothing says I have too much money, like an imported primate destroying your priceless tapestries. Hour 4. Breakfast. 9 a.m. Breakfast is served, though it bears little resemblance to your modern morning meal. Coffee hasn't caught on yet in most of Europe, so no caffeine fix for you. Instead, enjoy some small beer. Yes, alcohol for breakfast. It's safer than water and contains just enough alcohol to take the edge off your existential dread. The bread is dense, often stale, and potentially contains bits of stone from the milling process. Excellent for wearing down those pesky teeth that are causing you so much pain. It's served with butter so heavily salted it could preserve a corpse, which is precisely the point, as refrigeration won't be invented for centuries. If you're especially wealthy, You might have access to eggs or cold meats left over from yesterday's feast. Don't ask how long they've been sitting out. The concept of bacterial contamination is still a few centuries away from discovery. The food is presented with flourish by your taster, who has already sampled everything to ensure it's not poisoned. If he's still standing, it's probably safe. Probably. He looks a bit pale this morning, but that might just be the lead-based makeup he's wearing. The meal is heavy on spices, not for flavor but to mask the taste of spoilage. That exotic pepper cost more per ounce than gold and traveled halfway around the world to disguise the fact that you're eating meat that's been hanging unrefrigerated for weeks. Sugar is displayed prominently, usually in elaborate sculptures, called subtleties. These inedible sugar constructions might depict castles, biblical scenes, or political allegories. They serve no purpose except to broadcast that you're wealthy enough to display food you don't even eat. Meanwhile, the peasants working your land are quite literally starving to death. Feeling queasy yet? That could be guilt, or it could be the beginning of dysentery. Either way, best to continue with your day while you still can. Oh, and if you're wondering why your wine tastes faintly of lead, that's because vineyard owners are sweetening sour wines with lead sugar. It makes for a sweeter flavor and a substantially shorter lifespan. Cheers. Hour 5. Morning Court, 10 a.m. It's time for morning court, where you'll sit on an uncomfortable throne while people bow, scrape, and plot your demise. The throne room is packed with nobles, each one dressed in conspicuous consumption, their clothing alone worth more than what a peasant family might earn in a decade. The room stinks of too many unwashed bodies crammed together in heavy clothing, all liberally doused in perfume. The combined effect is something like a floral garbage heap. You'll grow accustomed to it. Eventually, court is a battlefield without weapons, at least without obvious weapons. Every word, gesture, and glance is calculated. That man smiling at you has 3 daggers hidden in his doublet, and connections to your cousin, who thinks he deserves your title. That woman curtsying so gracefully has memorized the precise location of your bedchamber, and could recite from memory every person who's visited you in the past month. The court astronomer approaches with today's horoscope, which will influence every decision you make. Venus is in retrograde, which apparently means you shouldn't sign treaties or consume root vegetables. The court physician recommends a preventative bloodletting, just to be safe. He has brought his finest rusty leeches for the occasion. A foreign ambassador presents his credentials with a speech in Latin that goes on for 45 excruciating minutes. You've forgotten most of your Latin education, but nodding sagely at random intervals seems to be working. The ambassador presents a gift, a mechanical clock that's worth more than most villages. You'll have it taken apart as soon as he leaves, to ensure it doesn't contain poison darts or tiny assassins. Religious tensions simmer beneath every interaction. Depending on which European country and decade you've landed in, you're either a Catholic persecuting Protestants, a Protestant persecuting Catholics, or caught somewhere in the messy middle of the Reformation. Choose your words carefully. The wrong theological opinion might cost you your head, or someone else's, if you're particularly good at this royal business. Comment below. Would you rather be beheaded for your religious beliefs, or slowly poisoned by your closest advisor? The 1500s are all about these delightful choices. Hour 6. Royal business. 11 a.m. Time for affairs of state. Hope you've been practicing your signature, because there are documents to sign. Many documents. Treaties, declarations, death warrants, marriage arrangements for 8-year-old royal cousins. You'll sign them all with a quill dipped in ink that takes forever to dry. Smudge an important decree, and you might accidentally declare war instead of peace. Oops, your signature isn't enough, of course. Each document must be authenticated with your royal seal, pressed into hot wax. Try not to drip the scalding wax onto your fingers while contemplating how easily forgery could lead to international incident. Your Privy Council, a collection of noblemen selected mostly for their family connections rather than competence, presents reports on the kingdom's finances. The news isn't good. Your father's wars drained the treasury. Your mother's building projects doubled. The deficit and the harvest has been poor for 3 years running. The obvious solution is to debase the currency by reducing the precious metal content in coins, thus causing inflation that will devastate your poorest subjects while temporarily filling your coffers. Speaking of money, it's tax collection season. Your tax farmers, yes, that's what they're really called, purchase the right to collect taxes in your name, then squeeze the populace for every penny they can extract above what they've paid you. It's corruption by design, and everyone hates it except the tax farmers themselves, who are getting fabulously wealthy while your popularity plummets. Religious reform is on the agenda again. The church owns approximately 1/3 of all land in your kingdom, making it both your greatest ally and your most formidable rival for power. Henry VIII of England famously solved this problem by breaking with Rome entirely, seizing church properties, and declaring himself head of his own church. You could try that, but be warned. It might result in excommunication, assassination, or European powers launching crusades against your heretical kingdom. Finally, there's the matter of succession. You need an heir, preferably several, given the child mortality rates. If you don't already have children, your council is getting nervous. If you do have children, they're likely being raised far away from you by a household of nurses, tutors, and spies reporting to various factions at court. You should visit them sometime. They might not recognize you. Hour 7. Diplomatic audiences, 12 p.m. The French ambassador requests an audience. He presents you with a portrait of a princess with an unusually small forehead, enormous ruff, and vacant expression. Marriage proposal. The princess comes with a dowry of 100,000 crowns, 2 disputed territories, and a genetic predisposition to hemophilia that will haunt European royalty for generations. The Spanish envoy counters with his own royal portrait. This princess has the distinctive Habsburg jaw, a severe underbite that makes her lower teeth jut forward like the prow of a ship. Beautiful? No. Connected to the most powerful dynasty in Europe? Absolutely. The portrait artist has heroically attempted to disguise her facial deformity, the result of generations of inbreeding. Your children will likely share this charming feature. But what about love? You ask your advisors. They exchange glances that suggest you've just asked about. Flying to the moon on a donkey. How adorably naive of you. Royal marriages are business arrangements, military alliances, and genetic mergers between power brokers. The Habsburg motto might as well be, "Others wage wars, but you, happy Austria, marry." The Ottoman ambassador arrives with exotic gifts, a mechanical singing bird made of gold, spices worth a fortune, and a handsome eunuch whose specific purpose at your court remains strategically ambiguous. Are these gifts or subtle threats? Both, most likely. Each diplomatic exchange is conducted through interpreters who may or may not be accurately translating your words. That joke you made about the Pope just resulted in a declaration of war, because your translator is secretly being paid by your enemies. Sleep well tonight. Hour 8. Midday meal, 1 p.m. Dinner, the main meal of the day, is served at midday. This isn't a private affair. You'll dine in the Great Hall, seated on a raised dais so everyone can watch you chew. Think of it as a live stream, but with more immediate consequences for chewing with your mouth open. The meal begins with a ceremonial hand washing. A servant pours scented water over your fingers into a basin, a ritual that does almost nothing for hygiene, but makes for excellent theater. You'll use these same unwashed hands to eat, as forks are just beginning to come into fashion. Most food is still consumed with knives, spoons, and fingers. The feast is an ostentatious display of wealth and power. Swans redressed in their feathers after cooking. Peacocks with their tails fanned out. Elaborate pastry constructions concealing live birds that fly out when the crust is broken, symbolizing the Holy Spirit or just showmanship, depending on your theological inclinations. You're served first after your food taster has survived his sampling. The highest-ranking nobles receive dishes next, with quality decreasing as the food makes its way down the social hierarchy. By the time servants get to eat, they're battling for scraps like medieval dumpster divers. The meat is heavily spiced to mask its questionable freshness and doused in sauces containing enough sugar to make a modern nutritionist faint. Vegetables are considered peasant food and thus beneath your dignity, contributing to your developing scurvy and constipation. Medieval medicine will later attribute these conditions to an imbalance of humors rather than your fruit and fiber-deficient diet. Wine flows freely, served in shared goblets that spread disease with democratic efficiency. Food poisoning is so common that you've developed an impressive tolerance for gastrointestinal distress. When your stomach inevitably rebels later, you'll blame evil spirits rather than the more obvious culprit of that 4-day-old meat pie. Musicians play throughout the meal, competing with the cacophony of hundreds of people eating, shouting, and plotting in the echoey stone hall. A court jester performs, the only person who can safely mock you to your face, though even his liberty has limits. The last royal fool who went too far now decorates the castle gate as a warning to those who would confuse comedy with treason. After 2 hours of feasting, you're stuffed, slightly drunk, and more than a little paranoid about what might have been slipped into your wine when you weren't looking. But there's no time to dwell on potential poisoning. The afternoon's entertainments await. Don't forget to like and subscribe, unless you're too busy picking swan meat from between your teeth with that solid gold toothpick. Hour 9. Entertainment and leisure. 3 p.m. Afternoon entertainment options for royalty are blood sports, or more blood sports. Perhaps you'd enjoy a pleasant hunt. Mounted on a horse bred for strength rather than comfort, you'll pursue deer through the royal forest while peasants are executed for poaching these same animals to feed their starving families. Not in the mood for hunting? How about bear baiting? A chained bear is tormented by dogs until either the bear or the dogs die in a bloody spectacle. It's considered hilarious family entertainment. Animal rights won't be invented for centuries. Perhaps you're the intellectual sort who prefers a good book. Hope you read Latin or Greek, because vernacular literature is still finding its footing. You could peruse a religious text, but choose carefully. The wrong Bible translation might identify you with a heretical movement. Best stick to approved reading material like saints' lives, filled with improbable miracles and gruesome martyrdoms. Physical exercise is essential for royal health. Men might practice sword play or jousting, activities that frequently result in injury or death. Nothing says healthy workout like blunt force trauma or puncture wounds. Women may engage in less lethal but equally uncomfortable activities like embroidery while wearing corsets that restrict breathing and eventually deform the ribcage. If you're female, much of your leisure time is spent managing the household, which is essentially running a small corporation with hundreds of employees. Every candle, grain of salt, and bottle of wine must be accounted for, while servants systematically steal anything not nailed down. Actual fun might be found in card games or dice, both associated with gambling and thus technically sinful. Chess is morally acceptable but may have uncomfortable political parallels as you sacrifice pawns to protect your king. Choose your metaphors carefully. Good news! A traveling theater company has arrived to perform. Bad news! If they're not carefully vetted, their play might contain seditious material that reflects poorly on your reign. The wrong reaction from you could validate treasonous sentiments or identify you as paranoid and humorless. Laugh at the right moments, or risk a diplomatic incident. Tell me in the comments whether you'd rather die from an infected jousting wound or poisoned by a rival during a chess match. These are the sorts of delightful options available to 16th century royalty. Hour 10. Royal Medicine, 5 p.m. Feeling a bit under the weather after all that rich food and physical exertion? Time to experience the medieval healthcare system, where the cure is often worse than the disease. Your royal physician arrives wearing a serious expression and carrying instruments that look more appropriate for woodworking than medicine. The doctor examines your face, particularly your complexion, and the whites of your eyes. He inspects your urine, noting its color, consistency, and taste. Yes, taste. Medieval physicians routinely tasted bodily fluids as part of their diagnostic process, something to consider when negotiating their salary. The diagnosis is delivered, with absolute certainty based on almost no empirical evidence. You have an excess of black bile, a hot humor in the second degree, and your zodiac sign is in an unfortunate alignment with Mars. Obviously, treatment options reflect the cutting-edge medical science of 1500-something. Bloodletting is the premier therapeutic intervention, based on the theory that illness is caused by bad blood that must be removed. The barber surgeon, yes, the same person who cuts your hair, will open a vein and drain a few pints, leaving you weakened, anemic, and more vulnerable to the actual disease. Perhaps you'll try cupping instead. Hot glass cups are placed on your skin to create suction, drawing blood to the surface and leaving spectacular bruises. It does absolutely nothing beneficial, but produces visible evidence that you're doing something about your illness. Medicines in this era are developed through a combination of folklore, astrology, and wild guesswork. That cough? Try syrup of squill and oxymel of horehound, washed down with wine infused with crushed pearls. That headache? Powdered unicorn horn might help, though it's actually narwhal tusk and does nothing except drain your treasury. Got syphilis? You wouldn't be the first monarch to contract the French disease, or Italian disease, or Spanish disease, depending on which country you're blaming. Treatment involves mercury, administered as ointment, pill, or steam bath. The resulting mercury poisoning produces symptoms remarkably similar to late-stage syphilis, but at least you'll die with the satisfaction of having tried something. For women, reproductive health is particularly perilous. Pregnancy means a 1 in 10 chance of death during childbirth. The royal birthing chamber is exclusively female territory, filled with midwives and ladies-in-waiting who have various levels of practical experience and superstitious beliefs. Male doctors are only called in when disaster is imminent, at which point they'll likely make things worse with forceps designed by nightmare enthusiasts. The good news? If you survive the cure, you might outlive the disease. The average royal lifespan is actually decent by period standards. You might make it to 50 if you avoid assassination, war injuries, childbed fever, smallpox, typhoid, dysentery, tuberculosis, and the tender ministrations of your own medical staff. Hour 11. Evening Court Politics, 7 p.m. As evening falls, the real politics begin. The formal constraints of daytime court loosen slightly, and with them, tongues. Alcohol flows more freely. Whispers become slightly louder. Flirtations become more daring. This is when alliances are truly formed and broken. Tonight's entertainment is a masque, a combination of dance, theater, and political allegory where nobles dress as mythological figures. You're cast as Apollo, Diana, representing divine right and wisdom. Your ambitious cousin is playing a serpent, subtle. Court factions are as complex as a multi-dimensional chess game. The old nobility resents the new men you've elevated. Your wife's ladies-in-waiting spy for her brother. The clergy watches for signs of religious wavering. Foreign ambassadors catalog your every weakness. Your own siblings may be corresponding with your enemies. That charming gentleman asking you to dance? He's gathering intelligence on whether your limp indicates declining health. The lady complimenting your jewelry? Assessing your wealth based on the quality of your gemstones. That young poet dedicating verses to your wisdom, looking for a pension and potentially composing similar verses for your rivals. Royal patronage is the evening's true currency. Everyone wants something. Positions, pensions, monopolies, land grants, titles, marriages, pardons. You distribute these favors carefully, knowing that each decision creates both gratitude and resentment in equal measure. A note is slipped discreetly into your hand. It could be a love letter, a warning about a plot against you, or a thinly veiled threat. Court communication operates in codes within codes. That reference to hawks and doves is actually discussing French military movements. The poem about Diana's bath is commenting on your sister's rumored pregnancy. Spies are everywhere. That servant refilling wine cups has been in French pay for years. The musician adjusting his lute strings reports to your chief minister. The visiting Italian artist painting your portrait memorizes the castle layout for potential assassins. Even your fool, between jests, gathers more honest intelligence than your paid informants. Marriage negotiations continue by proxy through seemingly casual conversations. Your unmarried sister dances with the Spanish ambassador a suspiciously long time. Your widowed aunt is deep in conversation with a papal legate. Your 7-year-old nephew has been promised to 3 different princesses, depending on which alliance seems most advantageous this month. Hour 12. Royal banquet, 9 p.m. Evening brings another feast, somehow even more extravagant than midday's meal. The great hall is now lit by hundreds of expensive beeswax candles, their flickering light reflecting off gold plate and jeweled goblets. The effect is magical, especially after your 5th cup of wine. Tonight's banquet celebrates something. A saint's day, a diplomatic visit. Tuesday. Any excuse for conspicuous consumption. The real purpose is displaying royal power through edible excess while your kingdom faces famine. The meal features foods selected more for visual impact than flavor. Gilded peacock, its feathers reattached post-cooking. Roasted swan wearing its crown. Marzipan sculptures of mythological creatures. A pie containing 24 blackbirds that actually fly out when cut open, splattering guests with droppings in what is somehow considered entertaining rather than unsanitary. Sugar sculptures dominate the table. Entire edible tableau, depicting biblical scenes or allegorical representations of your virtues. These cost more than feeding an entire village for a year, but last only an evening. Politics is performative waste. Between courses, players perform interludes, short theatrical pieces flattering you while subtly reinforcing political messages. Tonight's theme compares you to biblical King Solomon, known for wisdom but also for maintaining 1,000 wives and eventually turning to idol worship. Is this praise or veiled criticism? The playwright's career depends on you interpreting it correctly. A foreign dignitary presents an exotic gift, a mechanical clock that plays music on the hour. It's a masterpiece of engineering, but court paranoia immediately wonders if it contains hidden messages, explosive devices, or poison darts. It will be thoroughly dismantled before reaching your private chambers. The wine flows freely, lowering inhibitions and raising the risk of dangerous political talk. Your cupbearer never leaves your side, ensuring no one tampers with your drink. You notice your uncle's goblet being refilled more frequently than protocol dictates. Is someone trying to loosen his tongue, or worse? By the 5th course, the pretense of dignified dining has given way to barely controlled chaos. A drunken count is reciting impromptu poetry of questionable quality. 2 rival duchesses are having a vicious argument disguised as compliments. Your master of revels has passed out face down in a custard tart. Just another Tuesday in the 1500s. Hour 13. Bedtime rituals, 11 p.m. As the night winds down, you process from the great hall to your bedchamber in an absurd ceremony called the coucher. Yes, going to bed requires an audience in the 1500s. Privacy is not a concept that applies to royalty. Your bedchamber is prepared with elaborate ritual. Servants check under your bed for assassins, not out of paranoia but practical experience. Beds are tested for stability. Sheets are warmed with heated pans, and your nightclothes are fumigated with herbs to discourage lice, which will take up residence in your royal scalp regardless. The bedtime disrobing is as ceremonial as the morning dressing. Your formal outer garments are carefully removed by servants of appropriate rank. The higher your status, the more intimate. The service allowed. Only your highest-ranking attendant may remove your shirt or chemise. Your nightclothes, linen shifts only slightly less ornate than your day wear, are presented with reverence. Your bedchamber, despite being the most private space in your apartments, will never be empty. Several servants are appointed to sleep on pallets at the foot of your bed. Your closest body servant might share the outer edge of your enormous royal bed. This is partly for your protection and partly to ensure you're never unwatched. Kings and queens have been assassinated in their sleep. No one's taking chances with your slumbering form. Before sleep, you might try to read by candlelight, though artificial illumination is so expensive that even royalty considers it somewhat extravagant. Your candles are made from beeswax rather than tallow, a luxury that spares you the smell of burning animal fat, but still provides barely enough light to see the page. A final prayer is offered, with special emphasis on surviving the night. Night terrors were considered literal in the 16th century. Demons and spirits were believed to prey on sleeping victims. Those strange breathing difficulties you experience in the small hours? Clearly a succubus sitting on your chest, not the respiratory effects of your evening's third helping of mincemeat pie. Sweet dreams don't come easily when you're worried about everything from nocturnal assassination to morning bowel movements being discussed by your privy council. Hour 14. Midnight terrors. 12 a.m. The witching hour arrives. Your vast, canopied bed feels like a small island in a sea of darkness. The stone walls of your chamber creak and settle. Was that a footstep in the corridor? Or just the wind? Perhaps it's the ghost of your great-uncle who was accidentally locked in the East Tower until starvation solved a thorny succession crisis. Sleep doesn't come easily with the weight of the kingdom on your shoulders. 3 provinces are in open rebellion. Your treasury is empty. Your marriage alliance is faltering because you haven't produced an heir. That rash, the royal physician, dismissed this afternoon, looks suspiciously like the early stages of smallpox. Speaking of disease, the night sweats have begun. Is it anxiety or the first sign of the plague? Hard to tell. Either way, your sweat-soaked sheets will remain unchanged for weeks, becoming a pungent bacterial playground. A noise at the door. Just a servant checking that you're still breathing, or the start of a coup. Political transitions in the 16th century rarely wait for natural death when a well-placed pillow can accelerate the process. Your grandfather became king that way. Your children are taking notes. If the assassins don't get you, the bed might. Royal four-posters are architectural achievements rather than comfortable sleeping arrangements. The weight of the canopy above you is substantial, enough to crush you should the supporting posts fail. It's happened before. The rushes on your floor rustle with nocturnal activity, mice and rats making their nightly rounds. They're practically family at this point, having lived in your walls for generations. Some inhabitants of your bed hangings are even more intimate. Bedbugs consider royalty just another warm meal. Even your dreams are political. You jolt awake from a nightmare about your cousin's claim to the throne, wondering if it was just anxiety or a prophetic warning. Medieval dream interpretation is taken seriously in political circles. Better summon the court astrologer in the morning to analyze its significance. The night seems endless, each hour marked by church bells that disrupt whatever sleep you manage to find. Time is measured differently in the 16th century. First sleep and second sleep are separated by a wakeful period in the middle of the night, a time when some choose to pray, write, or visit bedchambers they shouldn't. Finale. Morning bells. 5 a.m. dawn approaches, announced by the relentless tolling of church bells. You've survived another night of restless sleep, royal paranoia, and the ever-present threat of death by natural or unnatural causes. Congratulations. Many monarchs weren't so fortunate. Your servants enter quietly, ready to begin the elaborate process of transforming you from disheveled human back into the immaculate embodiment of divine right and royal authority. The cycle starts again. The dressing, the prayers, the politics, the endless performance of power. The 16th century continues outside your window, indifferent to your comfort or survival. Peasants who will never meet you are already working fields in your name. Merchants who will never see you are paying taxes into your treasury. Soldiers who would die for you are guarding borders against enemies who look remarkably similar to your allies from last year. Another day of royal privilege and royal burden begins. Your mouth tastes like something died in it. Probably your teeth, slowly rotting despite your wealth. Your back aches from a mattress designed for display rather than support. Your bladder screams for relief, but you'll need to summon half a dozen people to witness such a private act. So the next time you find yourself daydreaming about being royalty in the good old days, remember this little tour through 16th century palace life. No antibiotics, no pain relievers stronger than alcohol, no concept of germs, no toilet paper, no privacy, no retirement plan except assassination or painful natural death. Perhaps being a commoner with indoor plumbing, central heating, and the miraculous privilege of using the bathroom without an audience isn't so terrible after all. Your studio apartment might be small, but at least it's not filled with courtiers watching you sleep. Sleep well, dear viewers, in your private, temperature-controlled, relatively parasite-free modern bedrooms. And if you enjoyed this historical nightmare, like, subscribe, and comment below on which historical era you'd like me to ruin for you next. Medieval peasant life? Victorian factory conditions? Bronze Age dental practices? The possibilities for historical suffering are endless. Good night. Don't let the royal bedbugs bite.